Hi, I'm Tyler Simone, and this is the Happily Self-Conscious podcast, the show where it's cool to be self-conscious. As a personal development enthusiast, I love to learn how I can become better in all areas of life, and I want to share with you transformative tips and tricks to help you also become your best self. Together, we'll learn how we can become more self-conscious. Let's do it. Oh my goodness, fancy meeting you here. Welcome to episode number 5 of the podcast. I hope you're doing well on this beautiful Monday or whenever you're listening to this episode. I actually took the time this weekend to really clean my apartment and it feels so refreshing. There's just nothing like it. I don't know who said it, but whoever said that the more clean your environment is, the more clear your mind is correct. 100%. I feel like I can, just breathe better, The air feels different. If you're ever feeling down, do a little cleaning and you'll feel a little bit better at the very least. In this episode, we are going to be talking about your hands. That's right. I know it seems a little strange, a little random maybe, but I'll have you know that your hands and the way you use your hands in your everyday life when doing presentations, while you're at work, they're a big deal. And we're going to talk about why so that you can start paying more attention to your hands so that you're making sure that you are communicating the messages you want to communicate. A little fun fact about me. Body language is pretty intriguing to me, actually. It is a major part of our communication, nonverbal communication to be exact. And I chose this topic this week because I have yet to talk about a physical aspect of personal development. And I've been reading Talk Like TED by Carmen Gallo recently, and she goes into hand gestures and why they are so powerful when communicating, presenting, selling, or entertaining. And I wanted to share what I've learned so far with you guys. So I hope by the end of this episode, you start to pay a little bit more attention to your hands. I know I certainly have. And I also hope you adopt some good habits so that you are communicating effectively from this day forward. Speaking of communicating, we are communicating all of the time, 24/7, whether we are speaking or not. Our body language will reveal our true feelings and can communicate the things we choose not to say verbally. So just because you're choosing not to say something doesn't mean it's not being said, which is crazy to think about. Studies suggest that understanding body language is essential because over 50% of a message's impact comes from body movements, which seems like a lot. But it makes total sense. I definitely feel like I pick up more messages from movements rather than words. And that explains why people say not to focus on what people say verbally, but instead focus on what they do, their actions. What are they communicating physically? There are 2 ways that we communicate non-verbally. This can be with body movements like facial expressions, gestures, and posture, or with proxemics, which has to do with space and how much distance you put between yourself and another person. I read all about this in a book called How to Communicate by Matthew McKay, Martha Davis, and Patrick Fanning, if you're interested in learning more about that. Today, I want to focus on gestures, specifically hand gestures, because while our hands are small compared to the rest of our body, they are mighty when it comes to body language. As soon as I started reading more about this, I couldn't stop looking at and thinking about my hands. So if you're doing that while listening to the rest of this episode, you and me both. There was a recent study done by Science of People on TED Talks where thousands of hours of presentation were watched, and they found that the most viral TED Talkers spoke with their words and their hands. The least popular TED Talkers used an average of 272 hand gestures during the 18-minute talk, which actually is the ideal length of a great presentation, by the way, while the most popular TED Talkers used an average of 465 hand gestures, which is almost double. Why is that? And why should we start using our hands more? Well, not only does body language make a huge difference when deciding whether someone is being deceptive or truthful, but it can also communicate power or inferiority, confidence or low confidence. When it comes to our hands, the positions we hold them in reveal a lot of information about us. For example, open hands communicates honesty. Exposing your palms to whoever you're talking to suggests that you have nothing to hide, as opposed to hiding your hands in your pockets. Rubbing your hands together shows that you are excited about something. Or the basketball steeple, where you hold your hands out in front of you like you're holding an imaginary basketball, is a power gesture used when people want to get you on their side, and it also communicates confidence. Those are all pretty positive gestures, but there are other gestures that you want to be careful of depending on the situation, like pointing directly at someone, keeping your hands in your pockets, or clenching your fists. Truthful and confident people have something called command presence. They have this look, the look of authority, and that all starts with how they carry themselves. In how to communicate, command presence is said to be a military term used to describe someone who presents himself or herself as a person with authority, someone who is to be respected and followed. This presence reflects the 3 C's: confidence, competence, and charisma. The truth is that people are making judgments about you all the time. As human beings, we can't really help it, right? We can almost instantly tell whether someone is confident or nervous based on how they walk, how they talk, and how they just look overall. Your hands, believe it or not, communicate a lot about you too. And if you seek to come off more confident at work or in your daily life while you're out and about, paying more attention to what your body is saying is a game changer. One thing I really love is a new journal. There's nothing like cracking open a brand new one to start writing down the goals you have for yourself. Love It Planners has super cute journals, vision board kits, planners, and printables that were created just for you to give you the motivation you need to make your dreams a reality. I write in my manifestation journal every morning to keep my goals in mind. It's helped keep me on track and to ignite more motivation in me to make those goals happen for myself. You can click my link down below in the show notes to receive 15% off your order today. Start making your goals your reality with Love It Planners. Now, back to the show. Researchers have found that using gestures, hand gestures specifically, can free up your mental capacities, and that complex thinkers use complex gestures, so much so that they can't stop using them even when they try their best not to. If you think back to a time where you were watching somebody else present something, or a salesman approached you to sell you something, what were they doing with their hands, and how did it make you feel? Did you trust them? I can say that visually being able to see someone's hands is a pretty big deal for me. And I do feel more comfortable when someone is using their hands while doing a presentation. It makes me feel like they know what they're talking about. The way that you carry yourself matters. You always want to feel comfortable in your own body, of course, and using gestures, simply freeing your hands and allowing them to help you illustrate your point frees up your mental capacities and can make you feel more comfortable when communicating. You don't feel as stiff, you feel more free, and you're using your hands to illustrate what you're saying so that you're better communicating your point. So to everyone else, you're taking up space. You don't look like you're trying to stay small. The more space you take up, the more powerful and confident you come off. Okay, back to the hands. If you're not hiding your hands, but instead you're confidently using them, it makes you appear to have more conviction, to be more sure of yourself. And this is important because the way you carry yourself changes the way you feel when you're delivering a message, whether it's to your boss or to your significant other, to strangers, etc. And I would think that the more comfortable you feel delivering your message, the better you carry yourself. And you continue to look and feel more and more confident. It's like a cycle that never stops. Hand gestures are illustrators. They can make your message or your argument even stronger than it would be without them. You don't want to use too many gestures, but you also don't want to keep your hands hidden, whether that is in your pockets or behind your back. The idea is to use hand gestures to reinforce your sentences or to emphasize certain words. Think of hand gestures as another tool to help you get your point across. The way I think about it is, I want to be as clear as possible, and I want for whoever I'm communicating with to understand just how passionate I am or just how upset I am. And if I'm doing a presentation, I want to appear as confident and sure of myself as possible. So I don't want to do anything that is going to contradict that. According to Dr. David McNeil, who is a leader in the area of hand gestures, first of all, who knew there was a specific area for that? I did not. According to him, it's all in the hands. And that's a quote. Your hands are a window into your thought process, so don't ever hide them. When you don't use your hands, you might notice that you have to use more words because you aren't utilizing your hands to help communicate your message. So not only are you working harder to communicate in general, but whoever is listening to you is having to work harder to understand what you're trying to say. And you may not be coming off like you're sure of who you are or what you're saying, unfortunately. You're not taking up space, which can be communicating a lack of confidence. So yes, use hand gestures, but don't overuse them. This tip was mentioned in Talk Like TED. Your hand gestures should feel natural to you, and they should look natural to everyone else. Don't ever try to mimic the hand gestures of other people because it can be obvious and it will come off more like a joke or an impersonation, and you don't want that. You want your gestures to flow with what you're saying and to be true to you. If you are doing a presentation or a speech, don't plan your hand gestures ahead of time. I've never personally tried doing that, but my guess is that it would use up a lot of your mental energy trying to remember which gestures go where. Instead, focus on letting your hands move freely to help you communicate what you're saying as you're saying it. When you're speaking, only use your gestures during important moments. I thought this tip was pretty important because when I think about it, we don't use our hands the entire time we're talking, but if we're telling a story and something really hurtful happens in the story, or we want to come off sincere, we might touch our chest, specifically our heart. Or if something major happened in the story we're telling, we might open our arms out wide. It really just depends on the story, but not overdoing your gestures is important to remember. One last tip when it comes to your hand gestures, keep them within the power sphere. This was mentioned in Talk Like TED also. The power sphere is an imaginary circle that starts at the top of your eyes, ends down at your belly button, and reaches out as far as your fingertips when your arms are stretched out wide. You can also refer to it as staying in the box. As soon as I started reading more about body language and the importance of using your hands, I instantly started paying more attention to them. And now I have some things I do on a daily basis to practice using my gestures to feel and look more powerful and more confident, because that's the goal, right? While I'm at home reading, I will read out loud to myself or to my kitten Sloan, and I will use my hands. And this has been really helpful for me. Using hand gestures feels more natural now than it did when I first started practicing it, that's for sure. I will also practice my hand gestures while I'm at work on Zoom, even if the camera is off. Honestly, if the camera is off, that's even better. If you don't do this already, I think you should try it. The combination of speaking out loud during a meeting, speaking confidently, sitting up straight, and using gestures, the self-confidence just shoots through the roof. The truth is that our body language is what shapes people's perceptions of us. Before we speak, our body language says so much. And not only does our body language communicate to others how they should feel about us, but it communicates to us how we should feel about ourselves. It's in practicing confidence-inducing body language that can increase our overall confidence, which can lead to more sales, more connections, a promotion, and more likability. It's safe to say that people who talk with their hands are seen as friendlier than those who don't. And you don't want to be one of those people. I mean, unless you want to, and that's your choice. You are your own person. It's just so interesting to discover these things because it makes me think. Okay, so that's why I couldn't sell that $600 coat in college because I didn't look happy to be there. I was tired after being at school all day and my hands were probably not moving. It just all starts to make so much sense. So all in all, don't forget about your hands. They communicate a lot about you. They are there to help you tell stories and to showcase all that you are. Our quote to end this episode comes from Amy Cuddy, social psychologist at the Harvard Business School. She says that our bodies change our minds, and our minds can change our behavior, and our behavior can change our outcomes. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I would love to know what you thought about this episode, and I want to know what you think about body language. So leave a short review. You can always find me over on Instagram at Miss Tyler Simone to stay connected in between episodes. I'll see you there. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to click the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you see another one on the list that you think looks interesting, take a listen or just download it for later. I'll see you next time.